What happens when someone thinks they can buy their way out of justice and meets a judge who can't be bought? Your Honor, I run 3 companies and employ 200 people. Surely we can work something out. The businessman's voice dripped with entitlement. Judge Frank Caprio looked up slowly, his eyes narrowing. What came next would shatter every assumption this man had about power, privilege, and justice. Sir, in my courtroom, your wallet doesn't determine your character. The businessman's confident smirk vanished instantly. He had walked into Providence Municipal Court expecting the usual dance of influence and money. He had no idea he was about to face a judge who would strip away every layer of his arrogance in front of millions watching online. It started with a simple parking violation. Michael Henderson, CEO of Henderson Holdings, had accumulated 17 unpaid tickets over 6 months. Each one ignored, each one beneath his notice. His assistant usually handled trivial matters, like these, but today she was sick, and Henderson had been forced to appear personally. 17 tickets, Mr. Henderson, Judge Caprio began, his voice steady and measured. Each one represents a choice you made to ignore the law. Henderson adjusted his $3,000 suit jacket and flashed that smile that had closed million-dollar deals. Your Honor, with respect, these are just parking tickets. I can pay whatever fine you think is appropriate. Let's not waste each other's time. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished reading. And what he found in Henderson's file would change everything. Mr. Henderson, I see here that on March 15th, you parked in a handicapped spot outside Children's Hospital. The ticket was issued while you were inside for, what does this say, a business meeting about acquiring the hospital's pharmacy contract. The courtroom fell silent. Henderson's casual confidence began to waver. The officer's notes indicate that Mrs. Dorothy Martinez, an 78-year-old woman bringing her grandson for chemotherapy, had to park 4 blocks away and walk because you took the only available handicapped spot. Henderson had no idea that Judge Caprio had already spoken to Mrs. Martinez. Your Honor, I was only there for 20 minutes, Henderson stammered, but his voice had lost its earlier authority. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and leaned forward. Mr. Henderson, do you know what 20 minutes means to a 78-year-old woman carrying medical equipment for her dying grandson? The businessman's face flushed red. That's not. I didn't know about any woman. You didn't know because you didn't look. You didn't care because you assumed your comfort mattered more than everyone else's. Subscribe now and comment what you think about this confrontation, because what Judge Caprio says next will completely change your perspective on real leadership and accountability. Henderson tried to regain control. Your Honor, I understand your concern, but I contribute significantly to this community. I employ hundreds of people. I pay substantial taxes. Stop. Judge Caprio's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. Mr. Henderson, you think your money gives you permission to ignore the law. You think your success exempts you from basic human decency. Today, you're going to learn otherwise. The judge opened another file. Let me tell you what real contribution looks like. Mrs. Martinez works as a volunteer at 3 different community centers. She tutors children for free, serves meals at the homeless shelter, and has never received so much as a speeding ticket in 60 years of driving. Henderson shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Where was this going? She contributes to society not because she's wealthy, but because she understands that we're all responsible for each other. You, Mr. Henderson, with all your resources, have forgotten that basic truth. But Judge Caprio wasn't done exposing the businessman's character. I also have a report here from the Department of Labor. Your company, Henderson Holdings, has been cited 14 times in the past 2 years for wage violations. 14 times you've stolen from your own employees by refusing to pay overtime, denying breaks, forcing people to work in unsafe conditions. Henderson's expensive lawyer started to stand, but Judge Caprio held up his hand. Sit down, counselor. Your client came here thinking he could buy his way out of parking tickets. Now he's going to face the truth about what kind of man he really is. The courtroom was dead silent. Court officers, clerks, even other defendants had stopped what they were doing to witness this unprecedented dismantling. Mr. Henderson, you told me you employ 200 people as if that makes you virtuous. But exploiting 200 people doesn't make you a pillar of the community. It makes you a parasite. Henderson's world was crumbling, and everyone could see it. Your Honor, you're being very unfair, Henderson protested, but his voice cracked like a teenager's. Unfair? Judge Caprio stood up, his presence filling the entire courtroom. You want to talk about unfair? Rosa Delgado, one of your employees, worked 12-hour shifts for 3 weeks straight because you wouldn't hire adequate staff. She missed her daughter's graduation because you threatened to fire her if she took time off. Henderson's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Maria Santos, another one of your employees, had to choose between buying her son's asthma medication and paying rent because you refused to provide health insurance despite making record profits. Each word was like a physical blow. Henderson, the man who had swaggered into this courtroom 30 minutes earlier, now looked like he wanted to disappear. But today, Mr. Henderson, your luck has run out. Because while you've been buying politicians and bribing inspectors, you forgot something crucial. Henderson had no idea what was coming next. You forgot that justice doesn't have a price tag. You forgot that some people can't be bought. And most importantly, you forgot that your actions have consequences. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel, but he wasn't ready to use it yet. I'm going to give you 2 choices, Mr. Henderson. Choice 1, pay the maximum fine for all 17 tickets, which comes to $4,200, and walk out of here thinking you've bought your way out of accountability once again. Henderson's eyes lit up. This was what he expected. This was what always happened. Choice 2, I sentence you to 40 hours of community service, working alongside the people you've been exploiting. Cleaning bedpans at the hospital where Mrs. Martinez brings her grandson. Serving meals at the shelter where your former employees go when you fire them for asking for basic human rights. The businessman's face went white as he realized Judge Caprio had trapped him. But here's the catch, Mr. Henderson. If you choose the money, I'm forwarding your entire file to the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division, the IRS, and the Department of Labor for a full investigation. If you choose community service, you get to keep your freedom while you learn what it means to contribute to society. Henderson's expensive lawyer whispered frantically in his ear, but Henderson wasn't listening. He was staring at Judge Caprio with the dawning realization that he had finally met someone who couldn't be bought, bullied, or intimidated. 40 hours of community service, spread over 10 weeks. 4 hours every Saturday morning. And Mr. Henderson? Yes, Your Honor? You'll be filmed the entire time. The footage will be posted online so the community can see if you're actually learning humility, or just going through the motions. The trap was complete. Henderson had been outmaneuvered by a master. I accept the community service, Your Honor. Good. But we're not finished. Judge Caprio opened one more file. Your company owes $127,000 in back wages to your employees. You have 30 days to pay every penny, with interest. If you don't, I'll hold you in contempt of court, and you'll spend the next 6 months in prison. Henderson's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, you don't have jurisdiction over labor disputes. Counselor, your client committed his crimes in my city, against my citizens. That gives me all the jurisdiction I need. The lawyer sat back down, defeated. Furthermore, Mr. Henderson, I'm ordering a complete audit of your business practices. Any employee who wants to testify about your illegal activities will be given full protection under whistleblower laws. Henderson realized he hadn't just lost a court case. He had lost everything. Judge Caprio finally picked up his gavel. Mr. Henderson, you came here thinking your money made you untouchable. You leave here knowing that justice applies to everyone, especially those who think they're above it. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with the sound of finality. Henderson sat in stunned silence as the courtroom emptied around him. The man who had entered with supreme confidence now looked like a broken shell. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished with his lesson. As Henderson gathered his things, Judge Caprio called out to him. Mr. Henderson, one more thing. Henderson turned, hoping for some last-minute mercy. "Mrs. Martinez wanted me to give you this." Judge Caprio handed him a handwritten note. Henderson opened it with trembling hands. "Mr. Henderson, I don't hate you for taking my parking spot. I pray that someday you'll understand that we're all just trying to take care of the people we love. God bless you. Dorothy Martinez." The note broke something inside Henderson that all of Judge Caprio's words couldn't reach. Henderson began to cry. Not the fake tears of a manipulator, but the genuine tears of a man seeing himself clearly for the first time. "Your Honor, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything, Mr. Henderson. Just learn. Learn that real power comes from lifting people up, not stepping on them. Learn that true success is measured by how many lives you improve, not how much money you make." Henderson nodded, unable to speak. "And Mr. Henderson? When you're serving meals at the shelter, when you're cleaning hospital rooms, when you're doing the work that really matters, that's when you'll discover who you really are underneath all that arrogance." Share this video if you believe that justice should apply to everyone, regardless of how much money they have, because Judge Caprio's final words will stay with you forever. As Henderson walked out of the courtroom, he was no longer the same man who had walked in. Judge Caprio had done more than sentence him to community service. He had forced him to confront the truth about himself. 6 months later, Henderson would write a letter to Judge Caprio. In it, he would thank the judge for giving him the greatest gift of his life, the chance to become a better man. But that's another story. On this day, in this courtroom, justice had been served not with a harsh sentence, but with a lesson in humanity that would echo far beyond these walls. Judge Frank Caprio had shown once again why real leadership isn't about power over others, it's about the wisdom to help others find their own power to do good. The businessman had been crushed, but from that crushing, something better had been born. And that, perhaps, was the greatest justice of all. But the story of Henderson's transformation was just beginning. The video of the courtroom confrontation went viral within hours. #Caprio crushed arrogance became a worldwide trending topic, viewed over 50 million times in the first week alone. Comments poured in from every corner of the globe, with people sharing their own stories of workplace exploitation and corporate abuse. Henderson's employees began speaking out. Rosa Delgado, the woman who had missed her daughter's graduation, gave an interview to local news. "I watched that video and cried. For the first time, someone with power stood up for people like me. Judge Caprio gave us our dignity back." What Henderson discovered during his first day of community service shocked everyone. At 6 a.m. on his first Saturday, Henderson arrived at Rhode Island Hospital wearing jeans and a t-shirt, clothes he hadn't worn since college. He was assigned to work with Janet Morrison, a 60-year-old volunteer who had been serving meals to patients' families for 15 years. "You're the businessman from the video," Janet said, not unkindly. "You ready to learn what real work looks like?" Henderson nodded, suddenly feeling more nervous than he had in any boardroom. But as the day progressed, something unexpected happened. While serving breakfast to families in the oncology ward, Henderson met James Rodriguez, a construction worker whose 7-year-old daughter was receiving chemotherapy. James had been living in his car for 3 weeks, unable to afford both gas money to visit his daughter and rent for his apartment. "My boss cut my hours," James explained quietly. "Said the economy's tough, but I see him driving a new BMW every month." Henderson felt something twist in his stomach. How many of his own employees were facing similar struggles while he bought his 3rd vacation home? That night, Henderson couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Mrs. Martinez's note, about Rosa Delgado missing her daughter's graduation, about James Rodriguez sleeping in his car. For the first time in decades, Henderson was seeing the real cost of his business practices. The next week, before his second community service shift, Henderson did something unprecedented. He called an emergency meeting with his entire staff, not just executives, but every single employee. "I owe you all an apology," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "I've been so focused on profits that I forgot you're human beings with families, dreams, and needs." The room was silent. Many employees thought it was another corporate manipulation. But then Henderson announced something that stunned everyone. Effective immediately, I'm implementing a $18 minimum wage, double the state requirement. Full health insurance for all employees and their families. And I'm establishing a $2 million fund for employee emergencies, medical bills, family crises, whatever you need. The announcement was met with shocked silence, then tears, then applause. But Henderson's transformation wasn't just about money. During his third week of community service, he was assigned to help Mrs. Dorothy Martinez herself, who had returned to volunteer at the children's ward despite her grandson's ongoing treatment. When Henderson saw her, he froze. "You're the young man who took my parking spot," she said gently. "Judge Caprio told me you'd be volunteering here." Henderson's eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Martinez, I am so sorry. I was so selfish, so blind to how my actions affected others." She patted his arm. "Mijo, we all make mistakes. The question is what we do after we realize them." That conversation changed Henderson forever. He began arriving at the hospital hours before his required service time. He learned the names of patients and families. He listened to their stories. He discovered that real wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in the connections between human beings. Dr. Sarah Chin, the head of oncology, noticed the change. "Michael, you've become one of our most dedicated volunteers. The families ask for you specifically now." Henderson smiled a genuine smile, not the calculated grin he'd perfected in business. "This is the first job I've ever had where I go home feeling like I actually helped someone." Meanwhile, the FBI investigation Judge Caprio had threatened was indeed proceeding. But as federal agents interviewed Henderson's employees, they heard a consistent message. "He's changed. Really changed. He paid us back everything he owed us, plus interest." Agent Patricia Williams had never seen anything like it. "Usually these guys fight us every step of the way. Henderson cooperated completely and implemented changes before we even asked." 6 months after the courtroom confrontation, Henderson requested a private meeting with Judge Caprio. "Your Honor, I wanted to thank you personally," Henderson said, his demeanor completely different, humble, genuine, grateful. "That day in your courtroom, you didn't just sentence me to community service. You showed me that I had a choice. I could continue being the person who took handicapped parking spots, or I could become the person who creates more handicapped spots for others who need them." Judge Caprio smiled. "Michael, I've been on the bench for 42 years. What you've done gives me hope that our justice system can actually change lives, not just punish them." The most powerful moment was yet to come. Judge Caprio handed him an envelope. "This came for you yesterday." Henderson opened it to find another note from Mrs. Martinez. "Michael, my grandson is in remission now, and he wants to meet the man who turned his life around by learning to serve others. Would you like to join us for dinner? Dorothy." Henderson's eyes filled with tears as he read the note aloud. That Sunday dinner would mark the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Henderson would visit Mrs. Martinez monthly, learning lessons about humility and grace that no business school had ever offered. When she passed away peacefully 2 years later, Henderson spoke at her funeral. "Dorothy Martinez saved my life. She showed me that the measure of a person isn't what they take from the world, but what they give to it." 3 years after the confrontation, Henderson married Dr. Sarah Chin, the oncologist he'd met during community service. At their wedding, Judge Caprio officiated, saying, "Your love story began in a place of healing, grew through service to others. This is what justice looks like, not punishment, but transformation that creates more love in the world." The businessman who had once been crushed by his own arrogance had rebuilt himself into something far greater. Judge Frank Caprio had proven that true justice isn't about destroying people, it's about giving them the chance to discover who they were always meant to become. Years later, the video of that courtroom confrontation would be studied in law schools worldwide. Students would analyze how Judge Caprio had used not just legal authority, but moral leadership to transform a life. They would learn that the greatest judges don't just interpret the law, they help people interpret themselves. Henderson's company became a case study in business ethics programs. His transformation from corporate predator to community servant showed that accountability, when delivered with wisdom rather than vengeance, could create ripples of positive change that lasted generations. But perhaps the most powerful legacy was simpler than all the academic analysis. In courtrooms across America, judges began asking themselves, "What would Judge Caprio do?" They learned that true justice serves not just society's need for order, but humanity's need for redemption. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering others, but from helping them conquer the worst parts of themselves.